Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. Today, we have with us, as part of this conversation, Kun Michael. He's the CFO for one of the largest life insurance company in Thailand. In fact, it's the second largest local life insurance company in Thailand. Very historic, very rich history. Close to around 77 plus years of legacy of a business, of having started the life insurance business in Thailand. Kun Michael is the CFO, as I said, and in the past, he has also worked in many financial institutions in banking as well as in investment banking as well. And recently, Kun Michael embarked on a very strategic financial transformation program, which took over the last 18 months of duration from planning right till platform selection, going through the whole journey. And they went live this year on 1st of January 2020. And today we are lucky to have Kun Michael with us to share his success story with all of you. So Kun Michael, thanks for taking time. Maybe we can start with maybe a view from your side, Kun Michael, on what was the background of your financial transformation program, which you embarked on in the last 24 months, and what were the main business drivers for embarking on this initiative within Thai Life?
Okay, thank you, Irvin, and good afternoon to everyone. For Thai Life, we have, the digital transformation project as a part of an overall project plan for the whole entire business. The finance transformation is a subset of the overall transformation. And the intention for us is to better serve our customers, our agents and our partners and our regulators and various other stakeholders. And partly because we know that all our stakeholders have a high expectation that they have set for it. So we require some kind of digital system to improve and to serve them. On a financial transformation program that we embark, the key thing is we recognize that the regulatory and the accounting requirement have changed phenomenally, particularly for the insurance. We require to implement IFRS 17, and we know that the amount of information that we require, and we need a bigger system to basically run the financial transformation project. SAP itself have a multi-ledger systems which we require, partly because we have a local GAAP that we need to report upon. We also have a taxation that we need to report upon, and then the new accounting standard that we require to report on it as well. And no doubt our management expecting us to producing a useful information report in a timely manner. And we know that if we don't change now, we won't be able to fulfill our obligation. So over the past 12 months, 18 months to a year, when we actually do the implementation, we pretty much discover also along the way that this SAP enable us to pretty much work from anywhere, any place. And as you know, during the COVID situation, we have been forced to lock down and working from home. And upon implementation of the SAP, when we go live beginning of this year, and during the lockdown period, we were able to continue to post journal entries, approving payments, and throughout that particular period, we were able to do the accounting processing and submitting the report to the regulator on time. Even though at that time our regulator allowed us to extend, but we are probably the only insurance company that able to submit the report on time. And again, I think we are so glad that we have implemented SAP system well before the COVID-19.
Sure. And you went live on 1st of January, Kun Michael, yeah? So I think that was the cutover which you had as well.
Yes, and the reason for the 1st of January is because we we want to start a new year with a new accounting systems.
Sure.
In fact, we set for a 12-month, but because it didn't cut over the 1st of January, we have almost like a 3 months window period to go live. So taking the 1st of January is really the right decision, because we start a new financial year on a clean systems.
Understood. Yeah. And Kun Michael, as I also understood from you, right? Thai Life has a legacy of building systems in-house, right? Historically, you had a very strong technology teams within Thai Life, and they're used to building systems and platforms across end-to-end requirements within Thai Life. And this was one of the first ever package implementation exercise, which you embarked upon within Thai Life as well. And you had also multiple things happening in your business, because you were also bringing in the portfolio which you acquired or took over from Cardiff, because Thai Cardiff was a JV which you were running, and that portfolio was coming into the Thai Life business as well. Plus you had the legacy business of Thai Life as well. So what was the things you had to put in place for changing the mindset within the organization of trying to embrace a package solution from SAP as part of this journey?
Okay, I think the main thing is even though our IT is very capable, but given the dynamic and the changes requirement that we need to support, and we have basically identified that our IT is better to serve our core business, meaning that the insurance business upfront. Whereas for the accounting system, where you could basically identify a package that you could implement that is robust, such as SAP, the decision was basically to move away from the in-house development and enhancement to the SAP. As you mentioned before, yes, we do actually have a merger before that, and the company that we acquired, it used a Sun Systems. It was part of our evaluation as well, whether we want to use that system. But given the size that we actually have, and given the new complexity of the IFRS 17s, the multiple requirement and the speed, the volume, we basically have settled down with the SAP.
Understood. Yeah, good, Michael. And one thing which I remember from a regulation perspective in Thailand, the regulator is very conservative. They expect either a platform hosted within Thailand, they want an on-premise solution instead of a cloud-based solution hosted elsewhere, etc. And I think that was one of the considerations you had as well. You wanted a platform on which you could manage yourself, hosted in data centers and controls within Thai Life as well. Yeah.
I think the main thing is like in Thailand, they have a Personal Data Protection Act. They call it PDPA. That become quite important because we need to, treat the customer information carefully and sensitively. On that particular aspect of it, the concern that we have on the solution, whether we're going to go on premises or we're going to go on cloud, is that at that time, the cloud solution that being offered by other service provider weren't able to give us certainty whether the data is going to be residing in Thailand or anywhere, because we just wasn't quite exactly sure where is their data center, because the way the data is stored, it could be in a multiple location. So at that time, SAP and partner have proposed a local cloud system, which that pretty much we know that will be completely satisfy the local requirement, and also serve the need that we want to outsource the IT operation out. So we have settled for T-Cloud systems.
T-Cloud systems, yeah. Understood, Kun Michael. No, I also remember, Kun Michael, from our initial phases of discussions, Thai Life, from a finance organization perspective, you had very unique requirements on how detailed you wanted to have your chart of accounts. I think there were some unique requirements around branch accounting, and you wanted to ensure the platform is able to support the local requirements from a gap perspective, as well as what you wanted to define as the operating model within Thailand as well, right? So maybe can you throw some light on some of those local nuances in Thailand, which also drew towards the selection of a platform as well, Khun Michael?
Okay, I think the most unique part about Thailand is the Thai language. I mean,
Yes.
Namely because like in a situation of like Thai Life, we are pretty much still a local firm. The key language for business is still Thai. So that is pretty much very, very unique. The other unique aspect of it is also the local taxation. They have a very unique way of calculating the tax requirement that we need to cater for in order to ensure that we comply. And then there's also a few other banking requirement that if you have the check issue and clearing in the same location with the same clearing center, then it's no problem. But if you're clearing outside the center, then the bank charge fees is actually a lot higher. So that kind of thing is also, we have to take that into consideration, because we don't want an implementation that is complete, but ultimately create a burden financially at the end of it. When you mentioned about the branch accounting, honestly, it's just for good control, because we also want to be able to measure our branch performances. And in accounting world, we want to make sure everything is balanced, as proper check of records, so that every center is, or the financial matter is basically can be fully accounted for.
Understood. And
partly because Thai Life, sorry, and partly because Thai Life, we have a couple of hundred branches.
Yes.
So it's important that we are able to manage and control on that front as well.
Understood. And Khun Michael, this program, if I remember very clearly, you also wanted to enhance the financial transparency within the organization, and you also were keen to make the finance function a little bit more strategic within Thai Life as well. I think these were some of your initial goals when you started off on the program as well. Were you able to achieve that as part of this program, 10, 12 months after being live? What is your assessment, whether you were successful in achieving some of these benefits?
Yeah, for us, as a financial controller, I mean, the keyword is basically controlling as well. So we definitely have to make sure that our numbers is, properly reflected in our general ledger. And reconciliation and control and automation is key for us, because we want to make sure that we don't drop off data from anywhere along our systems. All the systems are properly fully integrated, as minimum manual effort as possible. And any part of system to system integration, we need to basically make sure that it's functioning properly. So that is one of the key areas that we just need to make sure that all the connectivities and all the reconciliation are properly done up. And the team basically ensure that when we go through the system integration tests and that kind of thing.
Understood.
Yeah, it was complex, but that was one of the main key requirements that we wanted to make sure that we are fully tested system by systems.
Understood. I think, Khun Michael, I also remember your requirements were a little bit unique. Usually we come across customers who either initially do a platform selection and then they do a separate evaluation for an implementation partner. You said, I am choosing a platform, and you guys recommend whichever is the best partner, and you believed in whatever recommendations came from SAP at that point in time as well. How has your experience been working with that implementation partner methodology approach in the last 12 to 18 months, Khun Michael?
Yeah, I would say that, it's a total package. You could have the best product, but if you have poor services and poor implementation, the product doesn't show up. And, having a total package is so important. You need a good product. You need to have the expertise from the implementer. You need the commitment from the people, not just from the external, but it's also for internally. You know, it's so crucial that even though we embark on this accounting transformation project, IT is also become a very important key player. So when we're selecting the package, the vendor, even the hardware and the software, we make sure that all the people who make the decision are supportive and agree to it. Especially our IT, you know, they implement the system. I mean, they going to give up a legacy system for which they built from the beginning, and for them to give up, you know, I would say their baby is not easy. So along the way, they, you know, they agree that we will go for the SAP, and you know, once we got that consensus, the project just kicked on.
Understood. Yeah. And you know, post this implementation of a platform, did it also elevate the finance function from a capability for you to monitor data at a very, very minutest of the levels from an analytical perspective, visibility on the performance, as you rightly said, on branch, by products, by LOBs? Were you able to get better control on your operating costs and finance costs overall?
Actually, the design for the SAP GL is very important. There are basically two angles. One of them is the chart of account, that you make sure that you know, your chart of account is systematically arranged. It cater for the one standard and another standard, and you allow for expansion and the changes, so that you can cater for you know, the additional new GL account numbers and that kind of thing. So that's on a chart of account. And on a dimension aspect of it, it's also very important, because you know, we need to consider what kind of performance reporting that we want to report upon, be it the branch, be it the responsibility by profit center, cost center, be it by product, be it by units, by unit or segmentation or channel. We have to, you know, really arrange it properly, so that when we come to the information and analysis, we could just, you know, it's already been arranged, and then we just need to aggregate and then report. So that part, it took us a bit of time, but we did it. So when it comes to information preparation and reporting, is so much faster.
And you also said, Michael, you know, thanks to the platform being live just before COVID, it gave you a flexibility for your teams to work anywhere virtually, right? So this is the digital core, which is now in place, due to which, even though COVID was there, at least from your team's perspective, you were fully operational day in and day out, and things were going on as smooth as it was before COVID as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the area that you know, we have to make use of the technology, not to lock us down, but to be open enough and secure enough for us to be able to work and able to deliver and able to report pretty much on all platforms.
Sure.
And the key thing is that, you know, the key thing is that not just processing, but we're able to make all the payment to our policy and also our vendor during the COVID situation. So there's no delay at all.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, that we can imagine. So, Michael, we also know that you're currently busy on many other initiatives within Thai Life as well, you know, which is probably feeding in the data and information which you already have in your financial backbone. As an example, most of the insurance companies are embarking on IFRS 17. You've also embarked on an IFRS 17 journey as well. How is that being in place useful for you to be compliant with changing regulations, new regulations which are coming in either locally or from the international bodies as well?
I think the good thing for us is that when we implement the GL systems, we know that there's going to be a new requirement, say IFRS 17. So during the design stage, we already provided for. You know, we basically have room for new chart of account that we're going to be created. We have the different field that we want to report upon. And it's important, I think, during the design stage that we have to account for that before we start to implement it. And the mere fact that we know it's coming, it actually helps us to set it all up. So now when when we implement the 17, we basically have the space available for them to interface the data across into the GL systems.
Understood that.
So that is actually very, very important for us to plan ahead and set it up properly.
So Kun Michael, I also see some questions coming up on the chat. So let me just ask you a few questions while we are going through our discussion as well. I think one of the questions from one of the participants, this is from Kunjet. What is your advice to other CFOs who might be thinking or looking at planning and embarking on a similar journey in the future, on what are the key considerations in a finance system selection exercise from your perspective, Kun Michael?
I think the main thing is knowing the requirement. If you have a regulator, like in this case for us, we are required to report at least 3 sets of information. One is they call it IFRS 4, the local insurance standard, and then you have IFRS 17, and then you have the taxation rule, which is a combination of the two. It's important that you know the requirement, and then during the design or during the selection process, ensure that the SI and the package able to demonstrate that they can or they cannot do or can or cannot fulfill your requirement. That is very important. If you know the requirement and communicate it and get the SI to demonstrate it, whether they can or cannot. And then hopefully you can identify the gap, whether additional customization required or not. But my, from the experience is that as far as possible, try to minimize customization because it's really complex and it's time consuming.
And very useful. Good input, Kun Michael. There is also a question which I see, Kun Michael, which is coming up, which is what should be the next vision for your office in Thai life? What next after having achieved what you achieved in the last 12 to 18 months? You're going through this very complex IFRS 17 journey as well. But what do you see in the next 2 to 3 years? Okay.
Actually, from the business front, I will say that application on a mobile is very, very important for us. We are required to support the agent and the customers, using the mobile. The key area that impact accounting and finance is pretty much e-payment, which we which is the e-payment platform, which we make sure that our transactions are basically end to end, so that there's minimum human intervention. And the area that I responsible now is to make sure that all the e-payment processes from the different mode and different channel go through properly, and that we need to embark upon. Pretty much started already, but we aim to fulfill that by next year. And that's mainly really to supporting our customers and our agency and other partners.
Good, Michael, there is also a question which I see coming up. We know during the course of the program, you also had access to experts from SAP as part of the SAP consulting teams as well, where some experts were reviewing the work which was being done on the design of the chart of accounts, as well as how the configurations were being built, as well as pre-go live checks, etc. Do you think that kind of an engagement very closely with the OEM, the product vendor SAP itself, was useful in your case as well?
Actually, this is very useful. Having a specialist or expert in a different area to monitor the local SI and to make sure that the work has been properly done is so important for us as customers, because it's like a quality assurance that the system that we are implemented is up to the standard and there's no shortcut is being delivered. For us, somehow it gives the senior management a comfort that we are building a system that is, of use and of high standard.
Understood. That's good to hear. Good, Michael. I think that expert services was relevant and you found value in those expert services also coming from SAP.
Yes, very useful, very important, because from the local SI, they may or may not be the expert in a certain area, but once you have an expert on a subject matter expert for that particular field, it can actually reinforce and strengthen the implementation of the project. And,
yes,
ensure that we're able to deliver on time as well.
Because as you rightly pointed out, insurance business requirements are very unique. In fact, you were looking for an SI partner who understands the insurance chart of accounts, which was available in SAP S4, and so that you're able to leverage with that as a starting point before you start the design and fit gap exercise, everything else on the program.
Yes, very useful.
So one other question, Michael, were you at some point in time looking at doing a phased transition from your legacy platform and legacy processes into the new system, or you were always very clear that you want to turn off the legacy platform and processes on a specific date and then move on? We know for sure, based on what you've told us, that you decided to go live on a certain date and made it happen, but were there design considerations during the early stage of the project on what approach you should be taking to switch on the new platform as compared to keeping two parallel systems running for some point in time before turning off the old system?
I think during the thought process is that we need to identify certain component that we have to complete and it go together as one. So on that particular instant, we cannot decouple it, because once we decouple it, we lose control. So once we have identified that, basically we just have to complete it. For certain other area, for management reporting, which we can basically enhance later, we do not insist that it must go live on the very first day, because there will be too much expectation. Partly because data is not yet available for us to do a meaningful MIS. But if you talk about for the GL, when you take it up, you got to take it up for all the system. You cannot take up halfway and then expect it to be balanced. It just doesn't work. It just have to go through the whole thing at one go. Once you have identified it, we just can't do it halfway.
Sure.
But during the implementation, we have to do on a step by step. We have to basically break down component by component, system by system, checking one component, one integration after another. Once we complete it, then we're going to do a full system integration test on the entirety to make sure that we can go live on a totality.
Yeah, understood. In fact, Michael, I think you also answered the next question, which I see coming up in the live chat as well. I think there's a question from a gentleman, Chandresh, whether you migrated all the historical data as required in the life insurance financial accounting books, which I'm sure had to be done in Thai Life as well, but we would like to hear your views.
Okay, the historical data, we have to be very careful, because when we talk about the general ledger, we need to migrate the general ledger according to the new chart of account at the critical period. In this case, we actually migrate the monthly general ledger balance, convert from the old into the new chart of account, and make sure that the totality of the number provide us with historical numbers for us to do a comparisons. Okay, we do not migrate the transaction on a transaction basis, because that is numerous and it's not possible for us to move from an old chart of account into a new chart of account based on a transaction basis. We can only do on a total balance when we do the reclassification. So the question, the answer is that yes, we migrate at a summary level on a month-to-month basis, but focusing on the key reporting, be it on a quarter or be it on an annual basis. That is very important. And the retained earning must also ensure that the balance is correct. Because the number that we're taking up at the end of it, it will be supported by the core system, which we need to bring the balance on. Yeah.
Understood. Yeah. Good. One other question, Michael, which has come in from the team here. They wanted to understand what is unique from a Thailand life insurance business and Thailand regulated industry perspective, which you don't see in other markets in Southeast Asia, or in the developed markets, based on your experience of having worked in multiple geographies as well, which was again a learning curve for you once you went back into Thailand?
Life insurance business is actually a very long-term business. We have, whole life business, which I would probably say 99 years policy coverage. In terms of the data, for people who actually in the insurance, they will know that IFRS 17 required them to group them in a cohort. So the data is phenomenal in terms of the way they need to break down into a different series and different cohort. So life insurance is, I would say, massive data in terms of what is actually required from the actual as well as the expected cash flow that you expect from it. The transaction is sitting on our book a lot longer. Even like for our investment, we're not a trading company. Most of the time that we when we buy, we take it for a long period, so it will be in our book for many years. For life insurance, the volume, the data is huge because it just keep accumulating over time. So this is where I think when we embark on SAP, we recognize that we need to have a system that is big, scalable, and able to process large volume of data in a short span of time.
Can you give an example to the audience on the kind of volumes of data which is currently managed in SAP, Michael? If you recall from your memory, anything with regards to volumes of information flowing in SAP?
Millions.
Millions. Terabytes and terabytes of data, probably. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it is really it's really millions, because we have numerous branches, we have multiple dimensions, we have multiple products. So in terms of the information that we feed into our GL system is no longer a big number. It become like break down into granularity level, so that we can ultimately produce the report in a different dimension that you wanted. So when we keep the data, we have to keep in such a manner that is small enough that we can aggregate and then report upon. So it's big. It's big.
It's big, yeah. It's voluminous, yeah. Given the size of Thai Life as a portfolio, given your size of the business as well, we can imagine, how big the data is. How is the ease of collaboration between finance as an organization with other groups within Thai Life after getting this financial backbone in place, Michael? We understand there are a lot of other feeding processes from a business perspective with the finance portfolio. It could be on investment accounting, could be on product accounting, product information, actuarial information, etc., as well as operational systems, from a policy admin perspective, etc., feeding into the accounting system as well. How has that changed in your collaboration with the Office of the CIO or the Office of the CEO after this backbone came into place?
I think once we have the backbone, which is the GR system laid down, the format, the structures, the layout is pretty much become a standard. So any system want to send the data into the GL, we basically follow the same platform, follow the same protocol. When we implement the SAP completed, our company also embarked on the the HR system, which is also run by the SAP. So in a way, it pretty much become almost a common platform. So it's the integration, it become a lot easier from that perspective, for the in-house itself, I think system by system, we pretty much like, upgrade. Namely, because when we embark on a different dimension, some system may or may not have, but slowly they know now that we require this kind of information. Then slowly they basically enrich their data when they send it to us, so that we have a better reporting at the end.
So could Michael, if we were to move behind by 16 months and you have to restart this finance transformation program today, what would you do differently than what you did in the last 16 to 18 months?
I think probably be more kind to people. But if I do, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to complete the project or not. But that is the period that I will probably say, when we implement that 12-month, 18-month period, we were under a lot of pressure that we want to be able to deliver the project on time.
And Michael, it was on budget as well, right? If I remember.
Yeah, it's on budget. It's really on budget. I think this is, you're asking me, but we as an accountant, I mean, we very responsible for the budget that we have actually set. We don't spend more than what has been given. But that is also partly because we deliver on time. I mean, if we didn't deliver on time, I think we won't be able to control it, because it will be unfair to our consultants.
So, Kun Michael, I think I see one final question which is coming in from one of the attendees. He's asking, how do you handle the insurance contracts from legacy systems? I think we did touch on this briefly with regards to the integration from a legacy, contract information, contract data back from an IFRS 17 perspective into the new system. But is there anything else you would like to add, Kun Michael?
Yeah. I think have to be very careful when we talk about like insurance. Like I mentioned, right? Insurance contract is a very long period. So the life of the contract is still have many remaining life, and then the insurance business, like you have old contract that's basically date back many years ago. In order to meet the IFRS 17 requirement, you need to make sure that you have all the necessary data date back almost like 10 years for you to do a transition reserve. If you don't have those data, they expect you to fair value all the historical insurance contract. And some business or some insurance company may or may not be happy with it, because when you start to fair value, when you put all together and they say, okay, this is a number, it's almost become like a guessing game. So how do we actually handle that? I think the good thing for our part is that the core system that we have is an in-house system. So our IT is able to, go back to get those data. And during that particular 10-year period, we have not changed the core system. The only thing that we changed is the GL system. So the data that we require from the core system still exists. And the GL is not for the IFRS 17. The key information, the key data is actually from the core systems. Yes. So once the data is available in the core system, then you can go through the 17 requirement.
Mapping, yes, yeah. All the mapping into the chart of accounts, yeah. Understood. Good, Michael. I don't see any other questions from anyone on the chat. I think it was a good conversation, good, Michael. Thanks for having you today. If you don't have any other questions coming in from the participants, probably we appreciate you taking time out today in the evening, and we will stay in touch, good, Michael.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.